It's 3 a.m. Your screen glows like some digital campfire in the darkness, casting shadows that dance across empty energy drink cans and half-eaten pizza crusts. You've been debugging this same function for 6 hours straight, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you know you're making it worse with every line you touch. But here's the thing, nobody tells you about coding on no sleep. It's not just that you're tired, your brain is literally eating itself. Yeah, you heard that right. While you're sitting there thinking you're some kind of coding warrior, pulling an all-nighter like it's a badge of honor, your neurons are basically cannibalizing themselves for fuel. So before we dive into this beautiful nightmare of sleep deprivation and semicolons, smash that like button if you've ever written code that made you question your own sanity the next morning. And drop a comment telling me the longest you've stayed awake coding. I promise I won't judge much. Now grab yourself something caffeinated, maybe throw on those blue light blocking glasses you bought but never use, and let's explore what really happens when sleep and code collide. Picture this. You're a developer at a startup, because of course you are, and you've just been told the demo is tomorrow morning instead of next week. Your heart rate spikes, your palms get sweaty, you can already taste the metallic flavor of your fifth Red Bull. You tell yourself you've done this before. You're built different. Sleep is for people who don't understand the grind, but your brain is already starting to panic. See, when you skip sleep, it's not like turning off a light switch. It's more like slowly drowning in honey. Sweet at first, sure, but eventually you can't breathe. Your prefrontal cortex, that beautiful piece of evolutionary hardware that lets you write elegant algorithms and spot bugs before they happen, starts shutting down after just 17 hours without sleep. That's right. Staying awake from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. makes you as impaired as someone who's legally drunk. And you wouldn't code drunk, would you? Actually, don't answer that. I've seen some GitHub commits that suggest otherwise. The really twisted part is that you won't even realize how bad you've gotten. Sleep deprivation comes with this delightful side effect called metacognitive impairment. Basically, you lose the ability to judge your own performance. You'll sit there at hour 20, convinced you're writing the cleanest, most efficient code of your life, when in reality you're creating spaghetti that would make an Italian grandmother weep. You know that feeling when you wake up the next day and look at your code like it was written by a drunk raccoon with a keyboard. That's because it basically was. Let me paint you a picture of what's actually happening in your skull right now. While you're awake, your brain cells are producing this toxic protein called beta amyloid. Yeah, the same stuff that builds up in Alzheimer's patients. Cheerful, right? Normally when you sleep, your brain literally shrinks, opening up channels between cells that flush out all this mental sewage. It's like a dishwasher for your neurons. But when you skip sleep to meet that deadline, you're basically letting dirty dishes pile up in your cognitive sink. And trust me, nobody wants to eat off a plate covered in yesterday's spaghetti code. The worst part, this isn't some gradual decline. After missing just one night of sleep, your reaction time drops by 300%. Your ability to form new memories tanks harder than crypto in a bear market. And your creativity, that beautiful spark that helps you solve problems in elegant ways, gone. Reduced to the problem-solving capacity of a particularly dim goldfish. You're sitting there, staring at a bug that would take you 5 minutes to fix on a good day, and your brain is operating like it's running Windows Vista on a Pentium 2. But here's where it gets really dark. Your brain starts microsleeping. These are tiny blackouts, lasting anywhere from a fraction of a second to 30 seconds, where your brain just checks out without asking permission. You won't even notice it happening. One moment you're typing, the next you're staring at 3 pages of the letter J, because your finger never left the key, and somewhere in those lost seconds you've forgotten what you were even trying to do. The code you write during these zombie hours isn't just bad, it's dangerous. We're talking about introducing security vulnerabilities that would make a hacker's Christmas list. SQL injection vulnerabilities because you forgot to sanitize inputs. Race conditions because your exhausted brain couldn't track async operations. Memory leaks that would make the Titanic jealous. You're not just writing bad code, you're writing future tech debt that will haunt your team for years. And the universe has a sense of humor about this. The bugs you introduce at 4 a.m. always seem to surface at the worst possible moments. During the big presentation, right after deployment, when the CEO decides to personally test the new feature, it's like Karma has a GitHub account and really enjoys creating issues. But wait, it gets better, or worse depending on how you look at it. Your emotional regulation goes completely out the window. That coworker who uses tabs instead of spaces, you're ready to report them to HR. That perfectly reasonable code review comment, it feels like a personal attack on your entire bloodline. You'll find yourself having full arguments with your rubber duck and losing. The really insidious part about sleep deprivation is how it compounds. Miss one night of sleep, and you need more than one night to recover. It's not a one-to-one trade. Your sleep debt accumulates interest like a payday loan from hell. Miss 5 hours of sleep over a week, and you'd need almost 2 weeks of perfect sleep to fully recover. But when was the last time any developer got 2 weeks of perfect sleep? Exactly. We're all walking around with the cognitive equivalent of maxed out credit cards, paying the minimum balance, and wondering why we can't think straight. And here's something that'll really bake your noodle. The myth of the short sleeper. You know that person who claims they only need 4 hours of sleep. They're either lying, genetically mutated, which affects less than 1% of the population, or slowly dying inside. Most likely all three. The vast majority of humans need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. No amount of biohacking, cold showers, or bulletproof coffee will change that fundamental biological requirement. Your body keeps score, even if your mind refuses to acknowledge the game. Now I know what you're thinking. But what about all those famous developers who pulled all-nighters and built billion-dollar companies? First off, survivorship bias is a hell of a drug. For every sleep-deprived success story, there are thousands of burned-out developers whose products failed because they couldn't think clearly enough to solve real problems. Second, most of those success stories are heavily edited. They don't mention the mental breakdowns, the failed relationships, the health problems that surfaced years later. Success despite sleep deprivation, not because of it. You want to know the real kicker. Sleep isn't just about avoiding negative consequences. It's about unlocking your brain's full potential. During REM sleep, your brain literally rewires itself, forming new connections between disparate ideas, that impossible bug you've been struggling with. Your sleeping brain is working on it, running simulations, testing hypotheses, connecting dots you couldn't see while awake. Ever notice how the solution often comes to you in the shower the next morning? That's not coincidence. That's your brain finally having the resources to process the problem properly. Some of the greatest innovations in tech came from dreams or that drowsy state right after waking. Dmitri Mendeleev saw the periodic table in a dream. August Kekulé discovered the ring structure of benzene after dreaming of a snake eating its own tail. Your next breakthrough isn't hiding in another energy drink, it's waiting in your dreams. But our industry has turned sleep deprivation into a badge of honor. We brag about pulling all-nighters like we're comparing battle scars. Meanwhile, we're literally giving ourselves brain damage and calling it dedication. Let's talk about what happens when you finally crash. You know the moment. Your eyes feel like someone poured sand directly onto your corneas. Your head weighs approximately 700 pounds. You've transcended tired and entered some new plane of existence where consciousness is more of a suggestion than a requirement. You stumble to your bed or couch, or sometimes just put your head down right there at your desk, and you think, finally, sweet oblivion. But your brain has other plans. See, when you've been running on fumes for too long, your sleep architecture gets completely scrambled. Normal sleep cycles through stages like a well-orchestrated symphony. Light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, repeat. But after sleep deprivation, your brain panics and tries to make up for lost time all at once. You crash directly into deep sleep, skipping the gentle on-ramp entirely. It's like your brain hits the emergency button and just shuts everything down. You might sleep for 14 hours straight and wake up feeling worse than when you went to bed. That's because your brain spent all that time in deep sleep trying to clean up the toxic waste, but never got to REM sleep, where memory consolidation and learning happens. All that code you wrote, your brain hasn't properly processed any of it. You wake up and look at your own work like it's written in an alien language. But here's where the real nightmare begins. You've got work in a few hours. The demo is today. The client is expecting results. So what do? You reach for the coffee. You promise yourself you'll catch up on sleep after this project. You tell yourself you're being responsible, professional, dedicated. But your brain is screaming. The coffee doesn't wake you up anymore. It just makes you a jittery zombie. Your hands shake as you type. Your eyes can't focus properly, jumping between lines of code like a broken scanner. You're making typos in variable names, forgetting semicolons, writing functions that already exist because you can't remember what you did yesterday. Or was it today? Time has lost all meaning. The fluorescent lights in the office feel like they're burning through your retinas. Every notification sound makes you jump. Your fight or flight response is stuck in the on position, flooding your system with cortisol and adrenaline, even though the only danger is the code review you're about to fail spectacularly. Your colleagues start noticing. They make jokes at first. Rough night, they ask, and you laugh it off. But they can see it. The 1,000-yard stare. The way you zone out mid-conversation. The third time you ask the same question in the same meeting. Your code quality has fallen off a cliff, and everyone knows it, but nobody wants to be the one to say it. The pull requests that used to sail through review now come back looking like a murder scene. Red comments everywhere. Suggestions that are really polite ways of saying, "What were you thinking?" Your team lead schedules a one-on-one, and you know what's coming. They use words like burnout and work-life balance and sustainable pace, but all you hear is weakness. Because the culture has programmed you to believe that needing sleep is somehow a failure, that real developers don't need 8 hours, that if you were truly passionate about your craft, your body's basic biological needs wouldn't matter. This toxic mythology runs deep in tech culture. We've romanticized the garage startup, the dorm room coding session, the hackathon hero who stays up for 48 hours straight and ships the winning product. We post humble brags on social media about working through the weekend, complete with timestamps on our commits to prove our dedication. Meanwhile, our brains are literally shrinking. I'm not being metaphorical here. Chronic sleep deprivation causes your brain to lose gray matter. The areas responsible for decision-making, emotional regulation, and problem-solving physically shrink. You're not becoming a better developer by skipping sleep. You're giving yourself reversible brain damage and calling it career development and the quality of work. Let me tell you about a study Microsoft did. They tracked developer productivity and found that sleep-deprived developers not only wrote more bugs, they took significantly longer to complete the same tasks. A feature that should take 4 hours takes 8 when you're exhausted. But you feel like you're working twice as hard, so it must be twice as valuable, right? Wrong. You're running on a treadmill that's slowly speeding up while the ground beneath you crumbles. You know what's really messed up? The solution is so simple, it's almost insulting. Sleep, just sleep. But the industry has made that feel like giving up. Like you're not committed enough. Like you don't want it bad enough. As if wanting it means destroying yourself in pursuit of it. I had a friend, brilliant developer, could write code that would make you weep with its elegance. She bought into the hustle culture completely. 4 hours of sleep a night. Maximum coffee for breakfast, energy drinks for lunch, whatever kept her vertical for dinner. She was shipping features faster than anyone else on the team. Management loved her. She was the star, the example everyone else should follow. Then one day she just didn't show up. Not sick, not vacation, just gone. When we finally got hold of her, she was in the hospital. Complete nervous breakdown. Couldn't remember her own code. Couldn't remember the project she'd been working on for 6 months. The doctors said her brain scans looked like someone who'd suffered repeated concussions, all from sleep deprivation. She recovered eventually, but she never coded the same way again. The spark was gone. The joy was gone. She'd burned through years of passion in months of sleepless nights. And for what? The product she killed herself building, deprecated within a year. The company, acquired and dissolved. The code, deleted. All that sacrifice, all that damage for lines of text that no longer exist, but the scars on her brain, those are permanent. This is the reality nobody wants to talk about. We're not machines. We're biological entities with non-negotiable needs. Your brain isn't a CPU you can overclock until it burns out and then just replace. It's the only one you get, and every all-nighter is like taking a hammer to it and hoping it still works in the morning. The tech industry loves to talk about optimization. We optimize algorithms, databases, user interfaces. We spend hours shaving milliseconds off load times. But we completely ignore the most important system in the entire stack, our own brains. We run ourselves like badly configured servers. No redundancy, no failover, no maintenance windows. Just run until crash and hope someone notices before the whole system goes down. And when someone does crash, when someone burns out so badly, they leave the industry entirely, we act surprised. We have retrospectives and post-mortems and promise to do better. Then the next deadline comes and we do it all over again, because the culture is stronger than common sense. The peer pressure is stronger than self-preservation. The myth of the sleepless genius is stronger than the mountain of evidence showing it's literally killing us. You want to know what real high performance looks like. It's the developer who leaves at 5 p.m. and comes back the next morning fresh. It's the one who says no to unrealistic deadlines. It's the one who understands that their brain is their most valuable tool and treats it accordingly. But they don't get the glory. They don't get the war stories. They just get the job done, sustainably, repeatedly, without destroying themselves in the process. Here's a thought experiment for you. If you had a junior developer on your team who said they were going to start coming to work drunk every day because they code better that way, you'd intervene, right? You'd explain that it's dangerous, unproductive, and unsustainable. So why do we celebrate the developer who hasn't slept in 36 hours? The impairment is comparable. The danger to code quality is the same. The only difference is social acceptability. Now let's dive into your brain on a typical coding day running on 4 hours of sleep. Comment below if this sounds familiar. You wake up and immediately check your phone. Not because you want to, but because your exhausted brain craves the tiny dopamine hit from notifications. You've been awake for 30 seconds and you're already behind on Slack messages. Your anxiety spikes before your feet even hit the floor. You shuffle to the shower and stand under water that's either too hot or too cold because your temperature regulation is shot. You stare at the wall, trying to remember what you were working on yesterday. Was it the authentication bug, the database migration, that PR review you promised? Everything blurs together into one continuous stream of tasks, without beginning or end. Coffee doesn't wake you up anymore. It just prevents you from falling asleep, standing up. You've built up such a tolerance that what used to be your morning cup is now your hourly maintenance dose. Your teeth have a permanent brown tinge. Your stomach lining is probably decorating its own murder scene. But stopping isn't an option, because without caffeine you literally cannot function. You sit down at your desk and open your IDE. The code you wrote yesterday might as well be hieroglyphics. You spend the first hour just trying to understand what past you was thinking. Past you was an idiot, by the way. Past you wrote variable names like temp1 and temp2. Past you thought commenting was for weaklings. Past you created technical debt that present you has to pay with compound interest. Your first meeting is a stand-up. You're supposed to explain what you did yesterday and what you're doing today, but your short-term memory is so fried you can barely remember your own name. You mumble something about progress and blockers while praying nobody asks follow-up questions. They don't, because everyone else is just as exhausted as you are. It's a room full of zombies pretending to be professionals. You try to focus on your task. Read the requirements, forget them immediately. Read them again, open a browser tab to look something up. See another tab you left open yesterday. Fall down a Stack Overflow rabbit hole. Emerge 20 minutes later, having learned nothing relevant but now knowing way too much about JavaScript's weird type coercion. Your brain feels like it's swimming through molasses. Every thought takes effort. Every decision feels monumental. Should this be a class or a function? Should you use a map or an object? You spend 15 minutes debating variable names only to settle on data because your creativity died somewhere around 2 a.m. last night. Lunchtime arrives, and you realize you've written maybe 20 lines of actual code, but you've refactored the same function 6 times, each version slightly worse than the last. You're not programming anymore, you're just rearranging syntax and hoping something clicks. You grab lunch, something processed and beige, because your body craves quick energy. The sugar crash hits 30 minutes later, right when you're supposed to be in a technical planning meeting. You sit there, nodding along, understanding maybe every third word. Someone asks your opinion on the architecture. You panic and give the software developers universal non-answer. It depends on the requirements. Everyone nods sagely. Nobody has the energy to dig deeper. The afternoon is when the microsleeps really kick in. You're typing and suddenly you're not. You're staring at your screen and suddenly 5 minutes have passed. You're in the middle of a function and suddenly you have no idea what it's supposed to do. Your brain is flickering like a dying light bulb, on and off, never quite bright enough to see clearly. You start making stupid mistakes. Not just bugs, but fundamental errors in logic. You write an infinite loop and don't notice until your computer fans sound like a jet engine. You forget to save your work and lose an hour of progress. You push to the wrong branch and spend another hour figuring out how to undo it. Your cognitive load capacity is so diminished that holding more than one concept in your head at once becomes impossible. By 4 p.m., you're in survival mode. You're not trying to write good code anymore. You're just trying to write code that compiles. Comments, tests, documentation. Those are tomorrow's problem. And tomorrow you will hate today you with the burning passion of 1,000 suns. Your team's Slack channel becomes increasingly unhinged as the day wears on. Someone shares a meme about wanting to die. Everyone reacts with laughing emojis. Someone else says they've been looking at the same bug for 3 hours. More laughing emojis. It's gallows humor, the only kind that makes sense anymore. You're all drowning and making jokes about the water temperature. 5 o'clock comes and goes. You don't leave because you've accomplished nothing of value all day. You tell yourself just another hour, just until you fix this one thing. But your brain is running on fumes and anxiety. Every line of code takes longer to write. Every bug takes longer to find. You're moving in slow motion while time speeds up around you. By 7 p.m., you're the only one left in the office. Or maybe you're at home. But the isolation is the same. Just you and the screen and the crushing weight of unfinished work. You order takeout because cooking requires executive function you don't possess. You eat mechanically while staring at code, not tasting anything, just fueling the machine that barely works. This is when the really weird stuff starts happening. You start seeing bugs that aren't there. You spend 30 minutes debugging, only to realize you were looking at the wrong file. You write the same line of code 3 times because you keep forgetting you already wrote it. Your brain is so exhausted, it's creating problems just to have something to solve. You start talking to yourself, not internal monologue, actual out-loud conversation, explaining code to nobody, arguing with your past decisions, negotiating with the computer like it's a sentient being that's deliberately making your life harder. Okay, if I just change this one thing, will you please compile? Please, I'll write tests tomorrow. I promise. The computer doesn't care about your promises. 10 p.m. You've been coding for 14 hours and have maybe 2 hours of actual productivity to show for it. But leaving now feels like admitting defeat, like all that suffering was for nothing. So you make another cup of coffee, your 8th of the day, and settle in for the long haul. Your commits become increasingly desperate. Fixed stuff. Change things. Please work. Your future self trying to understand the Git history will need therapy. But future you is an abstract concept. Present you just wants the pain to stop. Midnight approaches, and you finally admit temporary defeat. You commit whatever garbage you've produced, with a message like "was EPD. We'll fix tomorrow." You know tomorrow you will open this code and want to throw your computer out the window. But that's tomorrow. Use problem. Present you just wants to go home. You close your laptop and immediately feel the weight of exhaustion hit you like a truck. Your eyes burn. Your back aches. Your wrists hurt from typing. Your head pounds from staring at a screen all day. You're a collection of failing parts held together by caffeine and stubbornness. The commute home is a blur. If you're driving, you're technically conscious but not really present. If you're on public transport, you're that person everyone avoids because you look like an extra from a zombie movie. You get home and promise yourself you'll go straight to bed. But first, just a quick check of Reddit. Maybe watch one YouTube video to decompress. Suddenly it's 2 a.m. and you're watching a documentary about ancient aliens or competitive dog grooming. Your brain is too wired to sleep but too exhausted to do anything useful. Let me tell you about the 4 stages of sleep-deprived coding hell that every developer goes through. Drop a like if you've experienced all 4, and honestly seek help if you have. Stage 1 is optimistic denial. This is hours 0 to 24, without proper sleep. You feel fine, great even. Your code flows like water. You're crushing tickets left and right. You're thinking maybe all that sleep stuff is overblown. Maybe you're one of those genetic mutants who doesn't need sleep. You're not, but your brain hasn't figured that out yet. The dopamine from feeling productive masks the cognitive decline that's already started. You're like a drunk person who thinks they're totally fine to drive. Your judgment is the first thing to go, including your judgment about your own judgment. Stage 2. Grinding deterioration. Days 2 through 4 of inadequate sleep. The honeymoon is over. Every line of code feels like pushing a boulder uphill. You read the same documentation 5 times and retain nothing. You know you're not at your best, but you think you can push through. This is where the real damage starts. Your hippocampus, the part of your brain that forms new memories, starts shrinking. You're literally losing the ability to learn. That new framework you're trying to understand. Your brain isn't creating the neural pathways to retain it. You're pouring water into a bucket with no bottom. This is also when the paranoia kicks in. You become convinced your code has bugs everywhere. You spend hours hunting for problems that don't exist. You refactor working code because you can't trust your own judgment. You add unnecessary complexity, trying to handle edge cases that will never happen. Your code becomes defensive, like you're preparing for war against your own mistakes. Stage 3 hits around day 5 to 7, and I call it existential crisis mode. This is when you start questioning everything. Why are you doing this? What's the point of any of it? Is software development even real, or just pushing electrons around until the heat death of the universe? You'll find yourself staring at a semicolon for 5 minutes wondering who decided this arbitrary symbol should end statements. The code you're writing becomes philosophical. Variable names get weird. You name a function contemplate existence because you genuinely can't remember what it's supposed to do. You write comments that read like cry for help. This function calculates user data. But what is a user, really? Aren't we all just users in the great computer simulation of life? Your pull requests become stream of consciousness novels that nobody wants to review. This is also when the hallucinations start. Yeah, you heard that right. After about 5 days of severe sleep deprivation, your brain starts generating its own reality. You'll see bugs crawling across your screen that aren't there, code that changes when you're not looking, error messages that disappear when you try to read them. Your brain is so desperate for REM sleep that it starts dreaming while you're awake. Stage 4 is what I call zombie autopilot, and it kicks in after a week or more of chronic sleep deprivation. You're not really conscious anymore, you're just going through the motions. Your code becomes repetitive, almost ritualistic. You write the same patterns over and over, because that's all your brain can remember. Innovation, problem solving, creative thinking, those higher functions are gone. You're operating on pure muscle memory and Stack Overflow copy-paste. This is when the really dangerous stuff happens. You'll commit API keys to public repos because your exhausted brain forgot they were secret. You'll write ASCII queries, vulnerable to injection, because sanitization requires thought you don't have. You'll create race conditions that will haunt production for years because understanding async behavior requires a functioning prefrontal cortex. But here's the truly insidious part. Each stage feels normal while you're in it. Your sleep-deprived brain can't accurately assess its own dysfunction. You think you're handling it. You think you're still productive. You think the code you're writing makes sense. It's only later, after you've finally slept, that you look back and realize you were basically sleepwalking through your job. And the recovery. Oh man, the recovery is its own special hell. You don't just bounce back after one good night's sleep. Your brain needs weeks to fully recover from chronic sleep deprivation. During that time you're operating at maybe 70% capacity. You're functional but not optimal. You're present but not sharp. You're coding but not creating. The technical debt you accumulated during your zombie phase, that takes months to pay off. Every shortcut you took, every test you skipped, every piece of documentation you didn't write, it all comes due with interest. You spend more time fixing your sleep-deprived mistakes than you saved by staying up to make them. I once worked with a team that did a death march for a product launch. 6 weeks of basically no sleep, just pure grind. We shipped on time. Management was thrilled. We were heroes. Then we spent the next 8 months fixing all the bugs we'd introduced. Customer complaints through the roof. Our App Store rating tanked. 2 developers quit from burnout. The CTO later admitted it would have been better to delay the launch by 2 weeks than deal with the aftermath. But the industry doesn't learn. Every company thinks they're different. Every startup thinks their developers are superhuman. Every deadline is treated like life or death until the next deadline, which is also life or death. We're stuck in a cycle of manufactured urgency that's literally killing our ability to do the thing we're paid to do, think clearly, and solve problems. You know what's really messed up? The science on this is crystal clear. Studies from Harvard, Stanford, NASA, they all say the same thing. Sleep deprivation destroys cognitive performance. A developer who gets 8 hours of sleep will outperform one who gets 4 hours every single time. Not sometimes, not usually, every single time. But we ignore it because the myth is stronger than the data. Let me break down what your brain actually needs to code effectively. First, you need slow-wave sleep. That's the deep sleep, where your brain consolidates procedural memory. This is where you actually internalize how to use that new framework or pattern. Without it, you can read documentation all day and retain nothing. You need REM sleep for creative problem solving. This is where your brain makes connections between disparate concepts, that elegant solution to a complex problem. It's not coming from your 17th Red Bull. It's coming from your dreams, literally. Your brain rehearses and refines solutions while you sleep. Skip it and you're coding with half your creative capacity offline. You need sleep spindles, these brief bursts of brain activity during stage 2 sleep that help transfer information from short-term to long-term memory. Without them, every day is Groundhog Day. You're relearning the same things over and over because your brain never properly stored them. And you need all of these in the right proportions, in the right order, consistently. You can't bank sleep. You can't catch up on weekends. You can't hack your way around it with supplements or cold showers or whatever Silicon Valley is selling this week. Your brain needs 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Every night, no exceptions. But here's what happens in reality. You get 4 hours of broken sleep because you were up until 3 a.m. fixing that critical bug. You wake up to your phone buzzing with Slack notifications. You're behind before you even start. So you skip breakfast, mainline coffee, and dive straight into code. By lunch you're running on pure adrenaline and whatever nutrients you can extract from vending machine food. By evening, you're so wired from caffeine and stress that you can't sleep even if you wanted to. So you code more because what else are you going to do? And the cycle continues. Time to get real about what sleep deprivation does to your actual code quality. Buckle up. This is going to hurt. Researchers at MIT studied developer performance and found that after just 1 night of restricted sleep, the number of bugs in code increased by 50%. That's not a typo. Half of the code you write when tired is basically future tech debt wearing a disguise. But it gets worse. The bugs you introduce when sleep deprived aren't your garden variety off by 1 errors. They're architectural nightmares. They're security vulnerabilities. They're the kind of bugs that make senior developers question their career choices when they have to fix them. Let me paint you a picture of sleep-deprived code in production. You're running on 3 hours of sleep, and you need to implement user authentication. Your exhausted brain takes shortcuts. You store passwords in plain text because hashing seems complicated right now. You'll fix it later, you tell yourself. Narrator voice. They did not fix it later. 6 months pass. Your startup gets popular. Someone runs a basic SQL injection attack because you forgot to sanitize inputs. Remember, your tired brain couldn't hold multiple security concepts at once. They download your entire user database. Passwords in plain text, email addresses, personal information. Your company makes headlines, but not the good kind. Stock price craters if you're public. Users flee. Lawsuits arrive. All because you were too tired to implement basic security. Think I'm exaggerating? Let me tell you about Knight Capital. In 2012, they deployed code that had been written and tested by sleep-deprived engineers rushing to meet a deadline. A single flag was incorrectly set. That one line of buggy code caused their system to make 4 million trades in 45 minutes. They lost $460 million. The company went from major player to bankrupt in less than an hour. All from code written by exhausted developers who missed something obvious. Or how about the Theric 25 radiation therapy machine? Software bugs written by overworked programmers caused massive radiation overdoses. People died. Actual human beings died because developers were too exhausted to catch race conditions in their code. But sure, tell me again how pulling an all-nighter to meet that sprint deadline is professional. Your tired brain doesn't just write bugs, it writes specific types of bugs. Memory leaks because you forget to free resources. Your program slowly consumes all available RAM, like some digital black hole. Users complain about performance. Systems crash, but finding memory leaks requires careful, methodical thinking, exactly what your sleep-deprived brain can't do. Race conditions become your specialty when tired. Your exhausted brain can't model concurrent execution properly. You write code that works perfectly 99% of the time and catastrophically fails that 1%. But that 1% always happens at the worst possible moment, during the demo, in production, when the CEO is watching. Off by 1 errors multiply, like rabbits. Your tired brain struggles with boundary conditions. Arrays overflow. Loops iterate one time too many or too few. It's such a simple mistake, but when you're exhausted, simple becomes complex. You'll stare at a for loop for 20 minutes, and still not see that you're using less than or equal when you should use less than. Null pointer exceptions become your calling card. Your sleep-deprived brain forgets to check if objects exist before using them. Your code becomes a minefield of potential crashes. Every function call is a gamble. Will the object be there? Who knows? Certainly not your brain running on fumes and false hope. But the real tragedy is the missed opportunities. When you're exhausted, you don't just write bad code, you fail to write good code. You miss elegant solutions. You implement brute force algorithms when a simple optimization would improve performance by orders of magnitude. You create technical debt, not through action but through omission. Let me give you a real example. A friend was working on a data processing pipeline. Running on no sleep, he implemented a nested loop solution. Of n² complexity, with their data size, processing took 18 hours. 18 hours. After finally getting sleep, he looked at it again and realized he could use a hash map. Of n's complexity, processing time dropped to 12 minutes. 18 hours to 12 minutes. That's the difference between a rested brain and an exhausted one. The sleep-deprived code isn't just slower, it's architecturally wrong. You'll implement synchronous operations that should be async. You'll create monolithic functions that should be modular. You'll tightly couple components that should be independent. You're not just writing code, you're creating future refactoring nightmares. Your database queries become crimes against efficiency. You'll write select star everywhere, because remembering specific column names is hard. You'll create n+1 query problems, because understanding joins requires brain power you don't have. You'll forget to add indexes and wonder why everything is slow. The database isn't slow. Your brain was when you designed the schema. Error handling? What error handling? Your tired brain operates on the assumption that everything will work perfectly. Try-catch blocks are for people who got 8 hours of sleep. You're living dangerously, letting exceptions bubble up to crash the entire application. Your users love seeing stack traces in production. Very professional. Your variable names become a cryptographic puzzle. At 2 a.m., X seemed like a perfectly reasonable name for a user authentication token. Data makes total sense for a complex object containing critical business logic. Temp 1 through Temp 47 tell a story, just not one anyone else can read. 6 months later, you're trying to debug your own code, and you might as well be reading ancient Sumerian comments, documentation. Those require coherent thought and the ability to context switch between coding and explaining. Your exhausted brain can barely do one, let alone both. So you write code that makes perfect sense to you in that moment, and is completely incomprehensible to everyone else, including future you. You know what's particularly cruel? The bugs you introduce when tired often don't surface immediately. They're time bombs. They sit there in your code base, waiting. The memory leak that takes weeks to cause a problem. The race condition that only happens under specific load. The security vulnerability that nobody notices until someone does. You've deployed present problems for future you to solve. Testing becomes a joke. Unit tests, you'll write them later, you promise. Integration tests? Too complicated for your current mental state. Manual testing, you clicked through it once and it seemed to work. Ship it. Your coverage reports look like a map of Switzerland, full of holes. But testing requires you to think adversarially about your own code, to imagine how it could fail. Your tired brain can barely imagine it working. The code reviews you perform while exhausted are equally useless. You skim through changes, approving everything because reading code requires focus you don't have. LGTM becomes your default response. Looks good to me, but really means look going to merge because actually reviewing would require thought. You're not providing value, you're just rubber stamping potential disasters, and when someone reviews your code, the comments hurt because deep down you know they're right. But your ego, inflated by caffeine and sleep deprivation, takes every suggestion as a personal attack. You argue about style while ignoring substance. You defend obvious mistakes because admitting error would mean admitting you're too tired to code. The entire review process becomes adversarial rather than collaborative. We need to talk about the long-term effects on your brain. And trust me, this is where things get genuinely dark. Comment below if you're starting to reconsider that all-nighter you were planning. Your brain physically changes. When you chronically skip sleep, I'm not talking about feeling foggy or tired. I'm talking about measurable structural changes to your neural architecture. Brain scans of chronically sleep-deprived individuals show reduced gray matter in regions critical for coding. The prefrontal cortex, your executive function center, literally shrinks. This is where planning, problem-solving, and abstract thinking happen. You know, the stuff that separates you from a coding bootcamp ChatGPT bot. Your hippocampus, crucial for forming new memories and learning, reduces in volume. Every new technology, framework, or pattern you try to learn while sleep-deprived is like writing data to a corrupted hard drive. It might stick, it might not, but either way, the retrieval is going to be sketchy. The connection between your amygdala, the emotional center, and your prefrontal cortex weakens. This is why sleep-deprived developers have emotional regulation issues. That rage you feel when someone suggests a different approach. That's your amygdala running wild without adult supervision. You're not just tired, you're neurologically compromised. But here's the really scary part. These changes accumulate every all-nighter, every week of 4-hour nights, every death march to meet a deadline. They all add up. Your brain keeps a running tally of sleep debt, and the interest rate is brutal. Studies show that chronic sleep deprivation in your 20s and 30s significantly increases your risk of cognitive decline in your 50s and 60s. You're literally borrowing from your future cognitive capacity to meet today's sprint goals. Hope that feature you're rushing to ship is worth potentially not being able to remember your grandkids' names. The damage isn't limited to cognition either. Your risk of depression increases by 400% when you regularly get less than 6 hours of sleep. 400%, that's not feeling sad, that's clinical, medicated, can't get out of bed depression. The tech industry already has mental health issues, and we're making it exponentially worse by glorifying sleeplessness. Anxiety disorders skyrocket with sleep deprivation, that constant feeling that you're behind, that panic when you see a Slack notification, that overwhelming dread Sunday nights. It's not just stress, it's your sleep-deprived brain unable to regulate fear responses. You're living in a constant state of physiological panic and calling it normal. Your risk of cardiovascular disease doubles with chronic sleep deprivation. Doubles. Your heart is literally working overtime to keep your exhausted body functional. Those chest pains you ignore? That occasional skipped heartbeat? That's your cardiovascular system sending out distress signals. But sure, ship that feature first, worry about your heart later. The immune system essentially goes offline when you don't sleep. You become a walking petri dish for every virus in your open plan office. That cold you can't shake, that's your immune system running on emergency power. White blood cell production tanks. Inflammation markers spike. You're basically inviting disease to set up shop in your body. Your metabolic system goes completely haywire. Insulin resistance develops, pushing you toward type 2 diabetes. Your body starts storing fat differently, particularly around your midsection, that developer physique you're rocking. It's not just from sitting all day, it's from your hormones being scrambled by sleep loss. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, increases. Leptin, the satiety hormone, decreases. You're constantly hungry, but never satisfied. Your testosterone levels, regardless of biological sex, crater without sleep. This affects everything from muscle mass to motivation to, yes, your sex drive. But who has time for relationships when there's code to write? Right. Your body is literally shutting down non-essential systems to keep you upright, and it considers reproduction pretty non-essential when you're dying of exhaustion. The cellular damage is perhaps the most insidious. Your telomeres, the protective caps on your chromosomes, shorten faster with sleep deprivation. You're literally aging faster at a cellular level. That joke about how developers age in dog years, it's not a joke if you're not sleeping. You're speedrunning the aging process. Your DNA repair mechanisms fail without adequate sleep. While you're awake, your cells accumulate damage from normal metabolic processes. Sleep is when repair happens. Skip it, and that damage accumulates. Cancer risk increases. Yes, the World Health Organization classified shift work that disrupts sleep as a probable carcinogen. Let that sink in. But the cruelest irony, all this damage makes it harder to sleep. The stress hormones from chronic exhaustion make falling asleep difficult. The anxiety keeps you awake. The physical discomfort from inflammation and metabolic dysfunction prevents deep sleep. You've created a biological prison where sleep becomes both desperately needed and increasingly impossible. Your brain's glymphatic system, discovered just recently, is basically the brain's waste removal service. It only works during deep sleep. Without it, toxic proteins accumulate. Beta amyloid, the stuff associated with Alzheimer's, builds up, whole proteins tangle. You're essentially giving yourself a preview of dementia, decades early. The research is terrifying. People who regularly get less than 6 hours of sleep in midlife have a 30% increased risk of dementia later. 30%. You're not just risking your current productivity, you're potentially sacrificing your entire cognitive future. Every all-nighter is a deposit in the dementia bank. Let's talk about what this means for your career long-term. You think you're getting ahead by working longer, but you're actually falling behind. While you're grinding out 80-hour weeks, slowly destroying your cognitive capacity, someone getting proper sleep is working 40 hours at twice your efficiency. They're learning faster, solving problems more elegantly, making fewer mistakes. 5 years down the line, they're the senior developer, while you're still debugging the same types of problems because your brain never properly consolidated the learning. The sleep-deprived brain loses neuroplasticity, the ability to form new neural connections. This is why older developers sometimes struggle with new technologies. It's not age, it's accumulated sleep debt destroying their ability to learn. You're literally programming yourself into obsolescence. Your creativity flatlines without REM sleep. Those innovative solutions that get you promoted, they come from a well-rested brain making novel connections. The sleep-deprived brain can only repeat patterns it already knows. You become a coding automaton, capable of repetition but not innovation. You're turning yourself into exactly the kind of developer that gets replaced by AI. Speaking of AI, let me blow your mind. Studies show that sleep-deprived humans perform worse than basic machine learning algorithms at pattern recognition and decision-making. You're literally performing below artificial intelligence because you won't give your biological intelligence the rest it needs. How's that for irony? But perhaps the saddest part is what you miss. While you're staring at a screen at 3 a.m., life is happening without you. Relationships deteriorate because you're either absent or present but exhausted. Hobbies disappear, exercise becomes a memory. You're not living, you're just existing between sprints. I met a developer once who realized he'd missed 5 years of his kid's childhood. Not missed like wasn't paying attention. Missed like literally wasn't there. Always at the office, always catching up on work. Always too tired to engage even when physically present. His kid grew from 5 to 10, while he grew from junior to senior developer. He got the promotion. His kid got a father-shaped absence. Was it worth it? He'll tell you no, but the damage is done. Alright, let's flip the script and talk about what happens when you actually get enough sleep. This is where it gets interesting. And maybe a little inspiring if you're into that sort of thing. Drop a comment if you've ever experienced the mythical well-rested coding session. When you get your full 7 to 9 hours, your brain becomes a completely different machine. Your processing speed increases by up to 40%. 40%. That's like upgrading from a 5-year-old laptop to a brand new gaming rig. Problems that seemed impossible at 2 a.m. suddenly have obvious solutions at 10 a.m. after proper rest. Your working memory expands dramatically. You can hold multiple complex concepts in your head simultaneously. That architecture design that was overwhelming. Your rested brain juggles it like a circus performer. You're not just coding, you're orchestrating symphonies of logic and elegance. Pattern recognition goes through the roof. You spot bugs before they happen. You see optimization opportunities everywhere. Your code reviews become surgical, precise, helpful, rather than nitpicky. You're operating at a level that sleep-deprived you literally cannot access. It's like having a superpower that only requires going to bed on time. The flow state, that mythical zone where code seems to write itself. It's almost impossible to achieve when sleep-deprived, but happens naturally when rested. Your brain has the resources to maintain focus, filter distractions, and operate at peak efficiency. Hours pass like minutes. Complex problems solve themselves. You're not fighting your brain anymore. You're dancing with it. Your learning capacity explodes. New frameworks that seemed impenetrable become intuitive. Documentation makes sense on the first read. You retain information long term, building a vast library of knowledge that compounds over time. While your sleep-deprived colleagues are relearning the same concepts weekly, you're advancing exponentially. Creativity flourishes with proper sleep. Your brain makes connections between disparate concepts, that elegant solution that uses a design pattern from a completely different domain. That comes from REM sleep, allowing your neurons to form novel pathways. You're not just solving problems, you're innovating. Your emotional intelligence skyrockets. You read team dynamics better. You communicate more clearly. Conflicts resolve instead of escalate. You become the developer everyone wants to work with, not because you're grinding harder, but because you're actually pleasant to be around. Your brain has the resources for empathy and collaboration. Here's something wild. Well-rested developers actually work fewer hours, but produce more value. A Stanford study found that productivity sharply declines after 50 hours per week and becomes negative after 55. Negative. You're literally destroying more value than you create. But a well-rested developer working 40 focused hours outproduces an exhausted developer working 80 distracted hours every single time. Your code quality transforms completely. The bugs per line of code drops by up to 70% when you're properly rested. 70%. That's not marginal improvement. That's transformation. Every hour of sleep you get translates directly to fewer hours debugging later. It's the highest ROI investment you can make in your productivity. Your architectural decisions improve dramatically. You think long-term instead of just solving immediate problems. You build systems that scale, that maintain, that others can understand and extend. You're not just coding for today's deadline, you're crafting tomorrow's foundation. The well-rested brain anticipates problems before they occur. Edge cases become obvious. Security vulnerabilities jump out at you. Performance bottlenecks reveal themselves during design, not after deployment. You're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, seeing moves ahead that exhausted brains can't fathom. Your communication skills level up entirely. Code comments become helpful documentation instead of cryptic notes. Your pull request descriptions actually explain what and why. Your technical discussions become teaching moments instead of ego battles. You elevate not just your own work, but your entire team's capability. The compound effect is staggering. A well-rested developer learning at full capacity for 5 years will dramatically outpace an exhausted developer grinding for 10. It's not even close. The rested developer has deeper knowledge, better intuition, stronger foundations. They've built expertise while the exhausted developer has built tech debt and health problems. Your career trajectory completely changes. Well-rested developers get promoted, not because they work longest, but because they solve hardest problems. They become technical leaders, architects, CTOs. Meanwhile, the exhausted grinders plateau, stuck in the same role, making the same mistakes, unable to level up because their brains never have the resources to truly learn and grow. Let me tell you about a real experiment. A company decided to enforce 9 to 5 working hours, no emails after hours, no weekend work. Mandatory vacation time. The old guard predicted disaster. Deadlines would be missed. Competitors would overtake them. The company would fail. What actually happened? Productivity increased by 30%. Bug rates dropped by half. Employee satisfaction skyrocketed. They shipped faster, better, cleaner. The enforced rest made everyone more effective. The company's valuation doubled in 18 months. Turns out, rested brains make better business decisions too. Your physical health improves dramatically with proper sleep. That chronic back pain from sitting all day, it heals faster when you sleep. Your immune system actually functions. You stop getting every bug that goes through the office. Your metabolism regulates. You lose weight without changing diet. Your body finally has resources to maintain itself instead of just survive. The mental health improvements are even more dramatic. Depression risk drops. Anxiety becomes manageable. That constant sense of dread disappears. You actually enjoy coding again instead of enduring it. Remember why you got into this field. The joy of solving problems, building things, creating value, that comes back when you're rested. Your relationships improve across the board. You have energy for life outside code. You're present for conversations instead of thinking about that bug. You become a full human being again instead of a coding machine, barely held together by caffeine and determination. Your family stops feeling like strangers living in the same house. The financial impact is real too. Well-rested developers make fewer costly mistakes. No accidentally deleting production databases. No shipping security vulnerabilities that trigger lawsuits. No architectural decisions that require million-dollar rewrites. The money saved from prevented disasters dwarfs any perceived productivity loss from working fewer hours. Your innovation capacity explodes. The biggest breakthroughs in tech came from well-rested minds with time to think, not from exhausted developers grinding through their 17th consecutive hour. Google's 20% time where Gmail and AdSense were created. That works because people have mental resources to spare. You can't innovate when you're barely surviving. Here's the kicker. Well-rested developers actually love their jobs. They don't fantasize about rage quitting. They don't browse job listings during lunch. They don't count days until retirement. They're engaged, motivated, passionate. They build careers, not just survive jobs. They create value instead of just extracting paychecks. Now let's destroy some myths about sleep and productivity that the tech industry keeps perpetuating. Buckle up. This is where we separate fact from Silicon Valley fiction. Hit that like button if you've been fed these lies and bought them wholesale. Myth number 1. You can catch up on sleep during weekends. Wrong. Sleep doesn't work like a credit card. You can pay off monthly. Every night of poor sleep causes immediate damage that compounds. Sleeping 12 hours on Saturday doesn't undo 5 nights of 4-hour sleep. Your brain needs consistency, not binge and purge cycles. Weekend recovery sleep is like trying to uncrash a car by driving it backward. Myth number 2. Some people are naturally short sleepers. This is true for less than 1% of the population. Less than 1%. These people have a specific genetic mutation, and statistically, you don't have it. Everyone claiming they only need 4 hours is either lying, dying, or both. Usually both. The rest of us need 7 to 9 hours. No exceptions, no negotiations. Myth number 3. You can train yourself to need less sleep. This is like saying you can train yourself to need less oxygen. Your brain's sleep requirements are biologically determined. You can't hack them any more than you can hack your need for water. Every attempt to reduce sleep need is just accumulating debt you'll pay with interest. Your body keeps perfect records, even if your mind pretends otherwise. Myth number 4. Caffeine completely compensates for lack of sleep. Caffeine is an adenosine receptor antagonist. It blocks the tired signals but doesn't actually restore your brain. It's like putting tape over your car's check engine light. The problem is still there, you just can't see it anymore. Caffeine masks exhaustion without addressing it. You're still impaired, just jittery impaired. Myth number 5. Working longer hours means getting more done. After about 50 hours per week, productivity doesn't just plateau, it declines. Every extra hour is less effective than the last. By hour 70, you're actively destroying value. You're introducing bugs faster than you can fix them. You're making decisions that will require weeks to undo. You're not working hard, you're working stupid. Myth number 6. Real developers code through the night. This romanticized image needs to die. The developers who built the foundations of modern computing, they kept regular hours. Dennis Ritchie, who created C, regular sleep schedule. Linus Torvalds, advocates for work-life balance. The mythology of the sleepless genius is just that, mythology. The reality is mundane. Consistent sleep equals consistent performance. Myth number 7. Crunch time is sometimes necessary. Every crunch is a planning failure. Every all-nighter represents a breakdown in project management. Well-run projects don't need heroics. They need sustainable pace and realistic timelines. Crunch time isn't necessary. It's a symptom of dysfunction that everyone pretends is normal. It's organizational debt paid with developer health. Myth number 8. You're more creative late at night. You're not more creative. You're more disinhibited. Your exhausted brain's quality filter is broken, so every idea seems brilliant. That's why your 3 a.m. code looks like garbage at 9 a.m. True creativity comes from a rested brain making novel connections, not an exhausted brain throwing spaghetti at the wall. The good ideas that do come at night, they'd come better and faster with proper sleep. Myth number 9. Sleep is wasted time. Sleep is when your brain consolidates learning, solves problems, and repairs itself. It's literally when you become a better developer. Every hour of sleep makes your waking hours more effective. It's not time wasted, it's investment in future productivity. Skipping sleep to code more is like skipping sharpening to cut more. Eventually you're just hammering with a dull blade. Myth number 10. I'll sleep when the project is done. The project is never done. There's always another feature, another bug, another deadline. If you're waiting for the perfect time to rest, you'll wait forever. The work expands to fill the time available. The only way to get sleep is to prioritize it above the endless stream of urgent but not important tasks. Myth number 11. Energy drinks are a valid substitute for sleep. Energy drinks are liquid panic attacks in a can. They flood your system with caffeine, sugar and various chemicals that make your heart race and your hands shake. They don't give you energy, they give you anxiety with a side of future cardiac problems. Your brain needs sleep, not taurine and B vitamins. You're not biohacking, you're slowly poisoning yourself. Myth number 12. I code better under pressure. You code faster under pressure. Not better. Your stressed brain takes shortcuts, ignores edge cases, skips testing. The code might ship quickly, but it's held together with duct tape and prayer. Pressure doesn't improve performance, it just makes you accept lower standards. You're not thriving under pressure, you're surviving it, barely. Myth number 13. Successful people sleep less. Correlation isn't causation. Successful people often have resources to mitigate sleep loss effects. Personal assistance, better healthcare, ability to take breaks. They succeed despite sleep loss, not because of it. And many crash spectacularly when the accumulated debt comes due. Look at the health problems, mental breakdowns and early deaths in high achievers. That's not success. That's a cautionary tale. Myth number 14. I'm young. I can handle it. Youth doesn't make you immune to sleep deprivation. It just delays the bill. Young bodies are more resilient, but the damage still accumulates. You're borrowing from your future health at a terrible interest rate. The all-nighters you pull at 25 determine your cognitive capacity at 50. Your future self is begging you to go to bed. Myth number 15. Modafinil or other smart drugs eliminate the need for sleep. These drugs don't replace sleep. They mask its absence. You're still accumulating all the cellular damage, cognitive decline, and health problems. You just don't feel it immediately. It's like taking painkillers for a broken leg. The pain might go away, but the leg is still broken. Eventually you have to pay the biological bill, and pharmaceutical band-aids won't help. Here's the truth. Nobody wants to hear. There's no hack for sleep. No shortcut. No optimization. Your brain needs 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night to function properly. That's not negotiable. It's not flexible. It's biological reality. Every attempt to circumvent this requirement is just accumulating damage you'll eventually have to repair or live with forever. The tech industry has created a culture where basic biological needs are seen as weakness, where self-care is labeled as lack of commitment, where destroying yourself is called passion. It's not passion, it's exploitation. You're being convinced to sacrifice your health for someone else's profit. And when you burn out, you'll be replaced by the next eager developer, ready to destroy themselves for the cause. Let's talk about how to actually fix your sleep while working in tech. This is your practical guide to not dying at your desk. Comment below if you're ready to join the radical revolution of getting adequate sleep. First, you need to understand your chronotype. Are you naturally a morning person or night owl? Fighting your biological clock is like coding against the grain of the language. You can do it, but it's painful and inefficient. If you're a night owl, negotiate later start times. If you're a morning lark, protect your evenings. Work with your biology, not against it. Set a non-negotiable sleep schedule. I don't care if the servers are on fire. I don't care if the CEO is breathing down your neck. Your bedtime is sacred. Put it in your calendar. Set alarms to stop working. Treat it with the same respect you'd treat a production deployment. Actually, treat it with more respect because your brain is more important than any code base. Create a shutdown ritual for your brain. You can't go from staring at code to sleeping instantly. Your brain needs transition time. Review what you accomplished today. Write down tomorrow's priorities. Close all tabs, literally and mentally. This tells your brain work is done. It's safe to rest. Without this ritual, your brain keeps running background processes all night, searching for bugs that aren't there. Your bedroom needs to be a sleep sanctuary. That means no screens, no laptop on the nightstand for quick fixes, no phone under the pillow for emergency calls. Your bedroom is for sleep and sleep alone. If they need you that badly, they can knock on your door. Spoiler alert, they won't. Temperature matters more than you think. Your body needs to cool down to initiate sleep. Set your bedroom to 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, it seems cold, that's the point. Your core body temperature needs to drop by 2 to 3 degrees to fall asleep. Fighting this is like trying to compile code without a compiler. It's not happening. Light exposure controls your circadian rhythm more than any other factor. Get bright light exposure within 30 minutes of waking. Go outside if possible. If you're in a windowless office, invest in a 10,000 lux light therapy lamp. Your brain uses light to set its internal clock. Without proper light cues, you're living in permanent jet lag. Equally important, eliminate blue light 2 hours before bed. Yes, that means no coding late at night. Blue light tells your brain it's noon regardless of the actual time. Use blue light filters, but better yet, Stop looking at screens entirely. Read a physical book. Remember those? Listen to podcasts. Do something, anything, that doesn't involve staring at pixels. Exercise. But time it right. Physical activity improves sleep quality dramatically, but not if done too late. Exercise raises core body temperature and cortisol levels, exactly what you don't want before bed. Morning or afternoon exercise is perfect. Evening exercise is sabotage. If you must exercise late, make it gentle yoga or stretching, not CrossFit. Caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 6 hours, that 3 p.m. coffee. It's still in your system at 9 p.m. That 5 p.m. energy drink. You might as well inject espresso directly into your veins at midnight. Cut off caffeine at least 8 hours before bed. Yes, you'll feel tired in the afternoon. That's called being human. Push through it or take a 20-minute nap. Alcohol is not a sleep aid. It's a sedative that destroys sleep architecture. You might fall asleep faster, but you won't get proper REM or deep sleep. You're unconscious, not resting. That nightcap is literally capping your night's recovery. If you must drink, stop at least 3 hours before bed and limit to 1 or 2 drinks maximum. Create a pre-sleep routine that doesn't involve screens. Take a hot bath or shower. The cooling afterward triggers sleep. Do light stretching. Practice meditation or breathing exercises. Write in a journal. Read fiction, not technical documentation. Your brain needs to downshift gradually, not slam on the brakes. Now for the hard truth about workplace changes. You need to set boundaries, and yes, it might affect your career short term. But what's the alternative? Burning out at 35. Developing chronic health conditions. Becoming that bitter senior developer who hates everything. Stand up for your biological needs. It's not negotiable. Learn to say no. No, I can't stay late. No, I won't check Slack. After 6 p.m. No, that deadline isn't realistic. Every yes to unrealistic demands is a no to your health. Practice saying no until it feels natural. Start small. Decline 1 unreasonable request per week. Build your no muscle gradually. Eventually, people stop asking because they know the answer. Document everything. When you work reasonable hours and still deliver, keep records. Show that productivity isn't about hours logged, but value delivered. When someone questions your commitment, show them your output. Data beats perception every time. Build a reputation for quality over quantity, for sustainable delivery over heroic efforts. Find allies. You're not the only one suffering. Start conversations about sustainable pace. Share articles about productivity and sleep. Create a culture change from within. When multiple people push back against unreasonable demands, management has to listen. There's safety in numbers. Use your exhausted colleagues' desperation for change. Negotiate with data. Show how bugs increase after 50 hours per week. Demonstrate how technical debt accumulates during crunch. Calculate the cost of turnover from burnout. Present sleep as a business case, not personal preference. Managers understand money. Show them how sleep deprivation costs money. Take actual vacations, not working vacations where you check email. Real vacations where you disconnect completely. Your brain needs extended periods without code to fully reset. 2 weeks minimum per year, ideally consecutive. Yes, the world will survive without you. No, everything won't fall apart. If it does, that's a system problem, not a you problem. Consider changing jobs if necessary. Some companies will never value employee health. Some managers see developers as expendable resources. If you're in a toxic environment, no amount of sleep hygiene will save you. Your health is worth more than any job. There are companies that value sustainable pace. Find them. This is it. The final chapter where we confront the ultimate question: what are you going to do about it? You've sat through this entire journey into the nightmare of sleep deprivation and its effect on your code, your brain, and your life. The question isn't whether you believe the science. It's overwhelming. The question is whether you'll act on it. Let me tell you what happens to developers who ignore this warning. I've watched careers implode in real time, brilliant minds reduced to shadows of their former selves. People who entered tech to change the world, leaving broken and bitter, unable to remember why they ever loved coding. The saddest part, they all thought they were different. They all believed they could handle it. Every single one said the same thing you're probably thinking right now: that won't happen to me. But here's the thing about biological reality: it doesn't care about your ego. Your neurons don't respect your deadlines. Your hippocampus doesn't care about your sprint velocity. Your body will collect its due, with interest, whether you acknowledge the debt or not. You're standing at a crossroads right now. Path 1, you continue down the road of sleep deprivation. You keep pulling all-nighters. You keep wearing exhaustion like a badge of honor. You keep writing bug-riddled code at 3 a.m. and calling it productivity. You know where this road leads. I've spent the last 9 chapters showing you the destination: cognitive decline, health problems, burnout, regret. Path 2, you make a change, tonight. Not tomorrow, not after this project, not when things calm down. Tonight. You shut down your computer at a reasonable hour. You protect your sleep like your career depends on it, because it does. You start treating your brain as your most valuable development tool, because it is. This path is harder initially. You'll face resistance. Colleagues will question your commitment. Managers will test your boundaries. The culture will push back against your sanity. But you'll write better code. You'll solve harder problems. You'll build a sustainable career instead of a temporary sprint that ends in a crash. The choice seems obvious when laid out like this, but I know the pressure you're under. I know the culture you're swimming in. I know how hard it is to be the one person leaving at 5 p.m. when everyone else is settling in for another late night. But consider this: every developer who burned out thought they were being heroic. Everyone who developed chronic health problems thought they were being dedicated. Everyone who missed their kids growing up thought they were providing. They weren't heroic, dedicated, or providing. They were being exploited by a system that profits from their sacrifice. You are not your code. Your value as a human being isn't measured in commits. Your worth isn't determined by how many hours you can stay conscious. You're a biological being with non-negotiable needs. And meeting those needs isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The most successful developers I know, the ones with long, sustainable careers, they all learned this lesson. Some learned it early and thrived. Others learned it late and survived. The ones who never learned it, they're not in tech anymore. They're cautionary tales told at conferences, if they're remembered at all. Here's what I want you to do right now. First, look at the time. If it's past your bedtime, close everything and go to sleep. I'm serious. This video will be here tomorrow. The code will be here tomorrow. But the sleep you missed tonight is gone forever. Second, tomorrow, implement one change. Just one. Maybe it's setting a bedtime alarm. Maybe it's removing your laptop from your bedroom. Maybe it's saying no to one unreasonable request. Start small, but start now. Third, find your support system. Share this video with your team. Start a conversation about sustainable pace. You'd be surprised how many of your colleagues are desperately waiting for someone else to say what they're thinking. Be that person. Lead by example. Make it okay to be human. The future of tech doesn't belong to the sleep-deprived zombies grinding themselves to dust. It belongs to the developers who understand that peak performance requires peak recovery, that innovation comes from rested minds, that sustainable pace beats heroic sprints every single time. I want to leave you with one final thought. In 50 years, we'll look back at the current tech culture's relationship with sleep the way we now look at doctors who used to smoke. It will seem obviously insane that we ever thought destroying our cognitive capacity was the path to cognitive work. Don't wait for the culture to change. Be the change. Your future self, the one who still loves coding at 60, who remembers their career with pride instead of regret, who has both professional success and personal health. That future self is begging you to get some sleep. Every night you get proper rest is an investment in that future. Every boundary you set is a deposit in your long-term success account. Every time you choose sleep over one more commit, you're choosing sustainability over burnout. You're choosing life over mere existence. So, here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, prioritize sleep above everything except true emergencies. And no, that feature request isn't an emergency. Track how you feel. Track your productivity. Track your code quality. I guarantee you'll see improvements that will shock you. Then come back and tell me about it in the comments. But most importantly, spread the word. Be vocal about getting sleep. Normalize leaving on time. Make it weird to brag about all-nighters instead of weird to get 8 hours. You have the power to change the culture. One well-rested day at a time. The revolution starts with you. Tonight, going to bed on time. Thank you for sticking through this journey into the dark heart of sleep deprivation. If this opened your eyes to what you've been doing to yourself, hit that like button and share it with every developer you know. Subscribe if you want more uncomfortable truths about tech culture. But right now, seriously, go to bed. Your code will thank you. Your brain will thank you. Your future self will thank you. And who knows, you might actually remember why you loved programming in the first place. Sweet dreams, and may your code be forever bug-free, or at least may you be awake enough to catch the bugs before production. Good night.